friends, myself Siddharth Chauhan. Welcome to Easy Medcam. Today's part of the video will be covering about the facial nerve. So let's start. The fibers arises the facial nerve. The fibers of the facial nerve arises from the pons region. So the fibers will get arise from the pons region of the brainstem, just lateral to the abducens nerve and enter the temporal bone via the internal acoustic meatus. So they enter via the internal acoustic meatus into the temporal bone. Okay. There are generally three principal branches of the facial nerve. They are the greater petrosal nerve, which is a lacrimal nerve, the nerve to the stapedius muscle, and the cauda tympani nerve, which supplies to the submandibular and the sublingual gland. So the cauda tympani branch of the facial nerve. Okay, the cauda tympani branch of the facial nerve, which supplies to the submandibular and sublingual gland, branches of and supplies to these salivary glands and the muscle and the tongue. So they supplies to the two salivary glands, which are the submandibular and sublingual and the tongue. So the cauda tympani branch of the facial nerve will supplies to the submandibular gland, sublingual gland and the tongue. Okay, the two glands are submandibular and sublingual. Okay, the nerve emerges from the stylomastoid foramen, then courses to the lateral aspect of the face. Okay, the facial nerve is a mixed nerve. So this is a mixed type of nerve and it has five major branches. The five major branches of the facial nerve are the temporal, they are zygomatic, buccal, mandibular and cervical. So this is important. We have to remember this. The five major branches of the facial nerve are the temporal, zygomatic, buccal, mandibular and cervical. And the three principal branches of the facial nerve are the which supplies to the greater petrosal nerve, which is a lacrimal, the nerve to the stapedius muscle, and the cauda tympani nerve, which supplies to a cauda submandibular, sublingual and the tongue. The facial nerve is in general are having three types of fibers. Okay, the somatic motor fiber, parasympathetic fibers and the sensory fibers. So three types of fibers in the facial nerves are the somatic motor fibers, parasympathetic fibers and the sensory fibers. The somatic motor fibers convey the somatic motor impulse to the skeletal muscles of the face. The skeletal muscles of face are only the muscles of the facial expression. It will not supply to the chewing muscles, which is served by the trigeminal nerve. So the somatic motor fiber of the facial nerve will supply to the muscles of the facial expression only. They will not supply to the chewing muscles. The chewing muscles are being supplied by the trigeminal nerve. So the chewing muscles are being supplied by the trigeminal nerve. It is not supplied by the facial nerve. Facial nerve will supply only to the muscles of the facial expression. The parasympathetic fiber transmit motor impulse to the lacrimal gland. This is important. They transmit to the lacrimal gland, nasal, palatine, submandibular gland and sublingual gland. Okay. So the parasympathetic fibers of the facial nerve will supply to the lacrimal gland, nasal, palatine, submandibular gland and sublingual gland. And the sensory fibers of the facial nerve will convey the spatial sensory impulse from the taste buds of the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. The posterior 1/3 of the tongue is being supplied by the glossopharyngeal nerve, but the anterior 2/3 of the tongue is being supplied by the facial nerve. And general sensory impulse from the tiny patches of skin of the ear also. So the sensory information is conveyed from the tiny patches of the skin on the ears also. So in general or in the whole, the facial nerve is having three types of fibers. They are the somatic motor fibers, which convey the somatic motor impulse to the skeletal muscles of the face, which are the muscles of the facial expression, except for the chewing muscles. The chewing muscles are being supplied by the trigeminal nerve. And the second types of fibers which are present in the facial nerve are the parasympathetic fibers. These fibers will transmit the motor's impulse to the lacrimal, nasal, palatine, submandibular and sublingual gland, whereas the sensory branch or the sensory fibers of the facial nerve will convey the spatial sensory information from the taste buds of anterior 2 by 3rd of the tongue and the general sensation impulse from the tiny patches of skin on the ears. So that's all for this part of the video. We'll be covering about the remaining section of the facial nerve in the next part of the video. So do like, share and subscribe my channel and press bell icon for more notification. And please guys do comments also. Thank you. Please like, share and subscribe Easy Medicam and press bell icon for more notification.